Well, shaking folks, back with another reaction and back with some more talk. Once again, I'd like to give a shout out to Stuart who shared this album with us, which is to say The Color of Spring, 1986. And it has been a couple weeks since the last Talk reaction. It went a little bit longer than I intended, though the gap more or less felt appropriate in that I've really been enjoying I Don't Believe in You. I've re-listened to it a number of times. I think it's just a fantastic tune. People commented that they regard it as a really good tune from this album and from Talk more generally. So, yeah, shout out to that one. And shout out to the people on this journey. Again, it's never a group I even heard of back in the day. There's a number of deep dives I'm doing where it's either a group I knew to some extent and have come to know much more fully. You know, a group like Erasure or even Eurythmics come to mind. There's groups where I knew them extensively, and yet you do a deep dive like this and you learn so much more. Depeche Mode obviously comes to mind. But then there's groups where I had no idea they existed, and so going through this catalog has not only been eye-opening and something new, but it's cool to hear another group that, you know, came to prominence in the 80s and in some sense is classified in the synth pop domain or umbrella label. But as I've come to learn, and perhaps more so with the beginning of this album, even than the previous, or you know, the It's My Life album, you know, this is a different flavor. It's not something that I would immediately think of, or at least the first couple tracks have been. So, yeah, enjoying hearing a new group and hearing the styles and sounds of the 80s that perhaps went past my experience, because again, you know, as a single person, there's a limit to what you can take in, certainly as a kid, and even as you get older and you become a collector and try to explore genres and you know, time periods of music that you've become fond of, you still, you know, not everything hits your radar. So shout out to all the people who've been involved in my channel and those deep dives, and in particular with Talk. So the next tune on Color of Spring is Life's What You Make It. I like it. There's a fundamental existentialism to it, the idea that, you know, if you want meaning in your existence, you're going to have to forge it, whether that's by yourself or perhaps more often in conjunction with others. The idea that there's no absolute concrete meaning just out there waiting for you, and that all you have to do is figure out what the right, you know, particular worldview is, and once you do that, it's all going to click into place. You know, whether you're talking on a more immediate everyday level or perhaps a more longer term ideological level, the idea that you will have to create the meaning that you want, I think is a very profound thought. So, you know, whether or not you don the hat of an existentialist, I think the phrase speaks to that idea of creating what the world that you want to inhabit. So the idea that life is like that for an individual biological organism, I think, is both profound and also speaks to our mortality. The idea that, you know, if someone dithers and perhaps just gets lost in the processes and the you know, entertainments of modern life, you might not find your way to creating that meaning. It's, you know, what's that phrase? Is it Tennyson? It's like when you come to die, like you hope to find that you had not lived. So I feel like there's those types of sentiments inherent in this. Now that could be more dire and pained, or it could be more prescriptive and encouraging. The idea of, like, you know, go out there and do that, because otherwise, you know, you'll just be sort of wasting your life. Or it could be, you know, so-and-so couldn't quite see that for what it was, and so they essentially, you know, went looking for the answer but never realized that whatever the answer was, it starts with you. So I feel like there could be some different emotional sentiments attached to it. But enough of me talking, let's listen. This is Talk. The tune is Life's What You Make It, and it's from the 1986 album The Color of Spring. That's like sleigh bells in there. Ooh. Like guitar. I like that sound more prescriptive. I'll never not love that guitar. Just like an organ, maybe? Get behind the long fade. Though it is still flourishing and flaring a bit. It's funny though, like, if you're a DJ and you were playing like a mix of like, you know, pop music and so on, like, at some point in that fade, if it's not the last track, you got to make a decision of when you cut over, right? Ideally, like on a measure break or at least a bar break. But yeah, it is funny when it, like, if the copy you have does a long fade, it's like, at what point do you, like, you know, because otherwise everyone's like, so wait, is the mix over? Like, is it ending? These are DJ concerns that you have to think about. And even though I mix, you know, a lot of techno and trance where fade out endings don't really happen, every once in a while maybe a trance track will have a ambient outro that gets quieter as it fades away, and in that case, you know, you've either already mixed out or it's the final track, and you know, that's, you know, it is doing what you want at the end. But I do have, you know, 80s records, and I've done a couple 80s mixes, including like a video one, and I think maybe I posted the other one. I'm not sure if I posted the other one. The other one being a mix I recorded at a house party many years ago. It was like 07, 08, something like that. And yeah, it's like, you know, Depeche Mode and some other records that I had in my 80s collection, like Men Without Hats. I'll look, and if I haven't posted that, I'll post it on here. I did a video mix for sure called Shnootz 80s Club Nights, so again, I do mix this kind of stuff, and those are the things you run into as a DJ, where it's like, if it's not the last track in the set, then, you know, if you know it's a long ending or a long fade out, then you have to, you know, start adjusting for it well beforehand. But yeah, either way, another cool tune. Again, that guitar, just really epic feel. What did I call it? Visionary. Like, it had this like emotional, looking at the horizon kind of feel to it. So I absolutely love that. Again, you know, on Discogs, I always like will bookmark the master release for albums as I've started going through these deep dives, especially if it's a group that I'm not familiar with. So I just get a sense of like, okay, so, you know, what year is it from? You know, what's the track list, at least on the original release? And, you know, sometimes they show like production and other credits below. So I do that, and I noticed on the Discogs master release for this album, the genre, one of the genres listed is art rock. And this, you know, this tune had what I would consider an art rock feel. You know, there's some Kate Bush tunes where I feel like fit into that very nicely. And this one, I think, is a nice fit. So obviously the use of genre and subgenre labels. It's subjective. It's, you know, something that not people won't always agree with, and indeed, or sometimes people like get annoyed at that, like, oh, don't try to put it into a box. And it's not that, but like when you speak about something, inevitably you have to use words, and words convey meanings, both the denotations, the things specifically indicated by the words in question, as well as the connotations, like all the things around that. I often use the example of an airplane, where it's like, okay, so the denotation is a specific type of conveyance that flies through the air. But what are all the connotations? Well, you need a pilot, you need a crew, you need a runway, you need an airline, who's going to build the plane. There's all sorts of things that go into the word airplane that are not explicitly mentioned by that. So I do find it interesting when people will discuss and debate genre labels, which happens a lot in the electronic world, trance and techno, and there's 90s tunes where like now trance is kind of seen maybe as a bit like, oh, it's not as cool to like trance as it used to be. So there's some tracks that back in the day, it was acid trance, it was hard trance, and now people are like, well, it's techno, it was always acid techno, and it's like, yeah, I am skeptical, because I remember at the time, you know, labels putting out releases, you know, the only acid trance shop in London. So I get it. The way people use words will vary, and not everyone agrees with putting labels on things. But I do think in this case, to circle back to my actual point, I apologize, art rock is a very good categorization of what we just heard. So, and again, I like the vocals, you know, understated, not like, you know, burning the house down or taking over the track sonically, but I like what they were doing. I like those backing vocal synths. Maybe they were genuinely vocals, and then there was a point where I was like, wait, so is it just an organ? But I was thinking I was hearing like organ chords, but also a vocal, you know, choral type of synth, or maybe actual choral work. So the layering of the tune sonically, I thought, was great too. So top track, like literally nothing to complain about. Enjoyed all the different parts. But as I said, I do just have to plug once again, I Don't Believe in You. I think it's a brilliant tune. Been re-listening a lot. So shout out to all of you who've brought Talk Talk to my attention. Shout out to Alicia and Stuart for sharing Talk Talk. Do let me know what you think of this. And Luca, the horizontal cat, and I will see you next time. Peace.